Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and I'm back with another Feel Good conversation with good friend Scott Clover. Now, you may remember I've interviewed him a couple of times before, and in fact, the first time I launched this show, the Feel Good Conversations, he was my first guest. So he's an important person, actually. He's a really amazing healer. I have to say that right from the outset. Scott and I have been working together on and off for probably about 3 years, and shifts occur every time I work with him. It's always a huge pleasure to me. So this session today, we were talking about minding our own energies. Mind your energies. And Scott has this amazing ability to point out exactly where the hole in mine are. He's got this amazing way of just like tuning in and seeing almost like the gaping holes in the way I might be thinking, but also in the way that other people are thinking. He's really got a very strong perception to see that and how we set ourselves up for these sort of failing situations. He also has this ability to tune into kind of fun imagination, the amazing creative side of all of us, so that we can become our own medicine, that we can become our own self-healers. Anyway, in today's session, we're talking about all sorts of things, including how to protect yourself, who to protect yourself from, why reciprocity is important, and how overcaring and healing people that possibly you have had difficulty with in the past might not be in your best interests. So anyway, let's bring him on now. Okay, so it's my absolute pleasure to bring on my guest today, and that's Scott Clover. And Scott, it's been a while. I mean, you've been on my show a couple of times before, but it's been a while since I've actually spoken to you in the flesh. Normally, when I speak to you, we're actually on WhatsApp because, you know, we do some work together and stuff. How are you? Lovely to see you, by the way.
Thank you. It's great to see you. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, as an intuitive, it's challenging right now to be a member of our society. So it's an interesting time to be an empath.
Isn't it just? So yeah. I know you talk a lot about, you know, minding your own energy. And that's something that you and I have spoken about quite a bit in the sessions that you and I have had, because as an empath, as a fellow empath, just like yourself, you know, I tend to be wide open, and you tune in and you're like, hey, mama, you got to close that down. So why do you think it's important that we mind our own energies at the moment?
Reciprocity. I talk about this a lot with my clients and just in people when we talk about empaths, is if you're overgiving and you're not receiving enough, then you're out of balance. And a lot of times, especially right now with the war happening and the full moon and there's a lot of solar flares that have been happening. You and I have talked about that as well. So there's just energy out in the planet. Everyone's a little heightened. Everyone's a little more hyper, a little more tired, a little more cranky, a little more horny, a little more whatever you were, you're a little more of that, right? So
yeah, can I just stop you actually? Horniness. Do you think that's because people are looking for reassurance, connection, to get out of their bodies? Where do you think that's coming from?
Well, as I said, some people are more of whatever they were prior. So okay. You know, that's second and first chakra stuff. So if you're interested in...
I zeroed straight in on the horniness. Never mind. Moving on. Go on.
You are a creature of habit. I was just saying that it's a way to look for a connection.
Yeah.
The connection we have right now seems to be a little broken because governments aren't telling any of their people like a valid truth of what's actually happening, because everyone's trying to make sense of it. So then you as an individual have to make your own decisions as to how much can I feel, how much can I believe, how much can I care. And if you're over caring about something you can't do anything about, on top of over caring for your family and friends around you, then you're out of balance and you're out of whack. It's more particularly now than even a few months ago with the lockdowns and things like that. Just because the war is on everyone's televisions, it's on everyone's phones. And you can avoid it, but you can't avoid that other people are feeling affected by it.
Yes.
So if you're an empath, there's a blanket of anxiety sort of being bounced back from the clouds that we're picking up on. And I'm currently in Europe. Here in Europe the other day, dust swooped over from the Sahara Desert. And it, to me, it just felt like another blanket of energy, like being bounced back at us,
Yeah.
because it was a very heightened day or two when Europe was covered in dust while the war was happening. There was just so much heightened energy. And we as humans have to realize that we're receptors. Whether you want to be a receptor, whether you believe it or not, that's not up for debate. The energy's out there and your body is compensating for it. Whether you're aware of it or not, the energies are out there. And the same thing goes for psychics or intuitives. Is, oh, I didn't pick up on that. Well, or I didn't pick up on this, or I didn't pick up on that. And certain different intuitives pick up on different things. We all have different skill sets. The energy's there. So we as human beings are feeling it. And so one thing I'm telling people is to, protect the energy around your home. Know where there's a big electricity. Don't put your bed right next to a bunch of electrical wires, for example. And don't put your Wi-Fi router in your bedroom at night and leave it running and then wonder why you're not sleeping very much. Well, there's energies happening in and around us, whether we see or sense them or not. I read an article the other day online and I thought, what an insipid, stupid article.
Which one was that?
It was about covering up the LED lights on your Wi-Fi router so you can sleep better. And I thought, why not just not have that mechanism sending wireless information all through your bedroom at night? Turn it off. And I know, fortunately, in the apartment that I live part-time, the Wi-Fi router and the bedroom electronics are all on the same circuit. So I just, before I go to sleep, I hit the circuit and close it all down. And then when we get back up in the morning, we turn it back on again. So we're not sleeping with our Wi-Fi running at us. And during the day, it's in the bedroom. So it's not directly in our living quarters where we spend our time. So that's just one example of our energies that are out there that maybe haven't even been out there 20, 30 years ago. We as humans our cells aren't protected to pick up the amount of radiation and the amount of blue light and all these things. Our bodies haven't had time to adjust to it genetically. Televisions didn't exist when my parents were born. So our eggs were inside our mothers at times when electronics weren't sending out information to our cells.
It was funny when you were saying that. I was just thinking, wow, when I was a twinkle in my daddy's eye, in my daddy's scrotum, he was, he was just like wandering around, not getting attacked by all these different things. Wow, yeah, I mean that's insane. It's funny, isn't it? Because both you and I live very close to the water, and as much as I love being grounded and sort of in the countryside right now, I'm going more and more to the sea, going there, as often as possible. And I was thinking one of the reasons might be just that, like, the cabling all seems to stop. The moment you get on the beach, there's no shops with their Wi-Fi's and this, that, and the other, and you kind of almost get out of range. Not quite, but there is something very nice about it.
Correct. And also there's ions from the salt in the water, which is the reason why I tell my clients after we do an energy exchange or we do an energy purging from their body or some sort of energetic exorcism, I always have them, or I ask them to sleep with salt by their beds for a few nights. And that salt can be somewhat of a psychic neutralizer. And there's a whole bunch of other things that people can do. You can wear silk, you can use witch hazel, clove oil on certain chakras. There's ways you can protect you and your energies, but don't be ignorant to the idea that just because you're not sensing it, it's not happening to your cells.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd like to talk about some of those methods and techniques that you've got a little bit later on. What seems really obvious is that we are our first defense, aren't we? Like we can put things on, but surely it's also a mindset or an intention.
Yes. And the energetic movement, or if you want to say the new age movement or the spiritual movement, has generally been regarded as open up, feel more, feel more, feel more. And I'm more from the school of, okay, you can feel, that doesn't mean you have to or should.
Yeah.
And if you're overfeeling, that means you're losing energy somewhere else. You have to your body has to compensate and lose energy somewhere else if you're over picking up or over metabolizing your
Yeah.
psychic energy or your information you're picking up. So.
Yes. I have to say, actually, in this last year, I've started having, like, when I have a bath, it's a salt bath. You know, I put in 2 handfuls. Yeah, salt is definitely, I mean, I've always loved salt so much, but now it's like, I almost feel a little lost if I'm not around salt somehow. You know, it just feels very, I don't know, there's something about it that just pulls me in. I liked what you said about reciprocity. Like, are
Yeah.
you receiving enough? What would you say is, like, how would you know if you're receiving enough? Because, you know, so many people, especially people that listen to this channel, will be the kinds of people that give and overgive.
Right. Well,
Almost
and people that
100%.
listen to this, people listen to this channel are going to say, "Well, I don't know how to receive."
Yeah, exactly. So
I
what would you say? Because you're interesting. I mean, obviously you're interesting. You're here, but you're interesting because you are a. I hope you don't mind me revealing just 2 details about your astrology. Is that okay?
So okay.
You're a Virgo, and
Okay.
Virgos are quite known for their boundaries, and yet you're a moon in Pisces, who are known for having horrific boundaries, like being like wide open. So you're a really interesting character. Like, you've got in your astrology, like, the idea of being guarded and still being of service, being of like guarded service, because Virgos are very much of service, as are, you know, Pisces people. But the moon in Pisces is like emotions on your chest, like wide open, like you're like a sponge. I've got my moon in Pisces as well, and I'm sure lots of people, you know, listening in will be sort of like the moon in Pisces types. So you know, I see you as somebody who can do both. You can tune in, and you can also put the fences up or shut the doors. So can you give us a rundown of tools that you think would be useful? Like, what are you thinking right now, you know, after I've shared a bit of your astrology?
Astrology is not something I focus too much on. I lean on you and some other people for that. I think your question is, how can people mind their own energy or guard their own energies? Is
Yeah.
that your question? Yeah.
Yes,
So
and I see that you're an interesting archetype. You know, like, you are somebody who can do both. You can switch between the 2.
yes, and archetypally, I don't know how it falls. I know my archetypal chart, and I have visionary, and I also have storyteller.
Yeah.
So that visionary ability is the psychic ability I use, and then the storyteller's ability is how I switch it into metaphor. And when I switch it into metaphor for the receiver, it's to help you understand what's happening to you better.
Okay, give us a good metaphor then.
So, well, imagine there's energy around you like mosquitoes. What would you do? What is your energetic mosquito repellent?
Ooh.
So create a ritual in your mind of how you're going to start your day. If you know it's going to be a challenging day, if you have a family reunion, if you have to deal with your kid's school class and there's going to be, 18 9-year-olds screaming on a bus, whatever it is, before you go into that situation, guard yourself, protect yourself, figure out or know your chakras a little bit and know which ones do you open up to. If there's somebody in a group of people that's having an issue, are you automatically drawn to run over there and ask for help when you haven't been asked for help? Stop and take a picture energetically of where your energy is pointing and why. What's happening in the situation? Are you extending your energy towards a situation that never asked you to do that? And a lot of times as healers, if you're, say, an amateur healer, or you're really interested in the healing and you're inclined to do it, the boundaries are less there, and then you'll maybe push your healing onto people that haven't really asked for it. Or I have clients that are healers that they come to me to help guide them, channel their capabilities. And I'll hear stories of how they tried to heal their cousin that had wronged them at one point, or their nephew that stole money from them had a sore ankle, and so they tried to heal them. No, those are not the people you exchange energy with.
Yeah.
You don't try and heal someone who's wronged you. That's not something that is conducive. You're not going to win a karmic point in the universe. You're going to feel depleted afterwards. So it's taking an example, and I repeat on most all of these podcasts, accept the existing reality of what's happening. So I'm going into a situation where there's going to be a lot of people that make me uncomfortable. What do I do? What have I done historically to protect me for that? As I said, you can put clove oil on your spleen chakra, you can wear silk, you can visualize different things. One of the favorite ones I created to help people is imagine you're encased in a life-size disco ball. And you're inside the disco ball, and the energy is being reflected away from you, that's being sent to you. And you then have, between the little mirrors, you have the discernment to pick what you're receiving and what you're not.
Yeah.
So just because you can feel doesn't mean you should. And just because you can help doesn't mean you should, especially if you haven't been asked. How many times have those of us listening said, oh, someone's in need, let me go over there and help them. And then afterwards, it turns out badly for us because we offered our assistance for some reason or another. You know, that no good deed goes unpunished. Well, it depends on who's saying that phrase.
Yeah.
Right? If you butted your way into some situation that you weren't asked, and then you got resentful because you weren't thanked, well, no one asked you to do that, so you don't technically deserve a thank you. So that's on the person extending their energies, right? Like, protect yourself and then be discerning of how and why you're going to expend your energy.
Yeah.
And this can work with peers, friendship groups, office environments. I mean, how many horror stories have we heard of? I gave 35 years to this company and they sent me packing on a Friday without any this and that. And so how many of us have given, you know, our blood, sweat, and tears to a corporation that is soulless and mindless by design?
I think most people have, haven't they? I mean, I know I have.
And then get resented when, you know, it's not reciprocated. So do your job, take your paycheck, and ameliorate your life in other ways. But don't overgive to something that's not giving back to you.
Yeah.
And when you do that repeatedly, you're going to become exhausted to the point if you reach out for help, then someone like me may point out, hey, look, you're incongruous. You're giving away 80 points and you're only receiving 10 points. So now you're at a deficit every time you wake up in the morning. And that's not how we want to feel, malaised and tired or resentful. That's not how we're designed, especially us empaths that want to help people.
Yeah.
So don't resent your own actions, I guess, is the subtitle to Mind Your Own Energy.
I love that. I imagine lots of people are just sat there, you know, eating their breakfast or whatever they're doing whilst they're listening to this, going,
That's
like nodding.
Yeah.
I imagine it's going to be a message that really almost could be a bit sharp, you know, like when you go, oh my God, I have been doing that. Wow. I know we've been experiencing that on and off. I say we, like me, there you go, I'm going to call it. I've been experiencing that on and off my whole life, and just as I get better at dealing with boundaries, I find new ways to repeat the pattern. So I'm going to cut myself some slack and just say, you know what, I'm very creative at finding ways of exploring this whole dynamic. It's interesting that you said, you know, that in the range of difficult situations we find ourselves in, family reunion was the first one on your list. Now, why could people be finding their family so difficult at the moment? Because I'm really conscious of families being really kind of pulled apart, and you know, there's a lot going on. What's your take on like the family energy at the moment?
Well, I think it partially changed in the era of Facebook, in that everyone is allowed their individualistic opinion. And when you take that out away from the screen and then into the family, then how dare you? And you can't comment the way you could just maybe more randomly or more anonymously. And so you hold it in, and then you think, oh my God, my uncle is such a jerk, or, you know, my cousin is such a this or that, the other thing. Well, families are tough. Families represent the worst and the best of us. And sometimes we resent that we overgave to our families that weren't willing to see us for who we are. There is no perfect family, right? And so if you were underrepresented in your family or overrepresented in your family, that creates an imbalance. And then you become an adult and you look to fill in that imbalance in other parts of your life until you realize that that imbalance exists. And then you regulate it, and then that pattern can shift or change.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And what about like those situations where you realize there is no healing, or, you know, where, like whereby, you know, with members of your family, you recognize that there are limitations, like somebody you're interacting with is like, this is just how it is. And
yeah, stay
you
the
don't
hell
want
away
to
from
talk
them.
about it, stay the hell away from them.
Stay the hell away from them. Don't go anywhere near them. Why would you drink poison and then wonder, you know, how dare that person? Well, if you gave yourself the poison, who do you have to blame?
But I mean, yeah, I absolutely see that. Yeah, 100%.
No, let's get a little deeper in this.
Yeah, go on then.
If you were compromised as a child by a member of your family for whatever reason, you know, intimidation wise, sexually, abuse, whatever, you are in no way obligated to keep creating a sphere in which you encompass that person. Stay the heck away from people that make you uncomfortable until you feel strong enough in whatever that was done to you that it won't affect you, that you can be around them again. But until then, stay the hell away from them. Do yourself a favor and don't put yourself in compromising situations that you know are going to deplete your energy. And if you're absolutely obligated to go to those things, then definitely prepare yourself in advance.
Yeah.
Have an in, have an out, have a plan. Know what you're going to sit, where you're, you know, be in control of that situation, because a lot of times the reason that we feel uncomfortable in our family situations is because our power was taken away. So reclaim your power by not being around that person or those people, or reclaim your power by being around those people on your terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because I think a lot of empaths grow up with this idea of being nice, don't they? And are possibly a bit fawn-like, you know, a bit doe-eyed. You know, the idea that we should be idealistic, we should be able to make things work. You know, love can heal everything, and this, that, and the other. Is that faulty thinking? Do you think? You know, how has that occurred?
If you distill it down, I think what you were getting at is empaths are trained to be placating. Because we feel when people are discordant. People that aren't as empathic don't feel the discordance in the room, so they don't try to settle it down. But we're trying to make other people feel better, so ultimately we can feel better ourselves, but that never really happens very often. That doesn't happen very often. So we just end up being overextended and then sort of go limp in the room without retracting our energies.
Oh my goodness, you're very good at this. Very good. I love it. What should we move on to now, Scott? What's coming up? Like as you're sat there, what do you want me to ask you about, or what do you want to talk about?
Oh, as I said, what are your rituals? What are the things that you're doing to protect yourself in your energy body, in your energy field, your auric field, your rituals, whether that means you bathe at a certain time, or you wake up at a certain time, or you exercise at a certain time, or you eat a certain thing. Rituals create consistency, which creates a grounding energy for us to latch onto. So rituals are important. Doing something repetitively for your own benefit. If people don't know how to do that, set your phone. We've all got a phone. Set your phone, and the same time every day, say a prayer or say an incantation or say an intention. That's one simple thing you can do for yourself to set the same intention every day around the same time. Or if you have a phone, go for a walk and leave your phone at home. Because there's no better way to shut down in this day and age than stay the heck away from your telephone and not have access to it. Oh my God, it's like back in the day when people smoked cigarettes and they always knew where their cigarettes were. Like, where's my phone? Where's my phone? If you go out for an hour walk, what?
And a lighter. I always knew where my cigarettes and lighter were. Yeah,
exactly. Always. Oh, there's 2 cigarettes in my old coat from last fall, in case, you know, that kind of mentality that people have. It's now processed to the telephone.
It is,
and if you go for a walk, then that phone's always in your pocket and accessible. But if you detach, and this is what I'm going to talk about going forward is if and when you detach from that, then your nervous system isn't thinking that there's something else to be paying attention to. So you can actually go on that walk and enjoy it, because you know whatever phone message is going to happen in your pocket will be sitting there waiting for you when you get back.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
I love that. I mean, I think most people that listen to this channel are sort of our age and above. But for people who are younger, they probably can't really remember what it was like to live in a world free of those kinds of distractions. I mean, could you just describe, you know, that feeling of freedom that, like, I mean, presumably, you know, you used to lie on ground and I remember as a child, like, lying down on the school field and almost feeling like waves of energy. Do you feel that? Were you noticing that as a kid, or like?
I ran energy when I was a kid. Yeah, I sensed a lot of things that I realize now the adults and the peers around me didn't sense, but I didn't know that at the time. But how many times, I mean, I almost weep sometimes when I go to an urban area and I see the children's playground covered in rubber mats, and there's no like earth connection at all. And I live in 2 urban areas, and
it's all rubber mats. Yeah, you're right.
It's all rubber matted or an asphalt and this and that and the other thing. There's no creek. There's no little river to catch a turtle in anymore. And people then would be scared that a child would be allowed to play next to a river. Well, millions and millions of years have happened that children have been playing next to a river. So
it's true.
You know, how much time are the parents choosing to forget what it's like to be a child because of some boogeyman that isn't really there if you stopped and thought about it?
Yes.
So.
Yes. I mean, I'm quite lucky where I am. We've got the sea, obviously, that we can walk to, but there's also lots of little parks nearby, parks in the woods, and we can actually walk to one. We just noticed, we've been here 6 months. We've only just noticed there's a park within walking distance of our house in the woods. And we just went and sat there yesterday, and it was, oh my goodness, it was bliss. You know, these tall trees, and the funny thing is, it's kind of incongruous. There's this like really beautiful woods, and then there's this little play area, and I say it's little, I mean it's kind of tiny, but it's got a slide and a climbing frame and everything. And actually what happened was our kids got into the woods and not a single child went down that slide or the fireman's pole. Carl did, my husband. He was like trying it out, but the kids, they ran up to a tree, they were watching ants, they saw where somebody had started to build a teepee. They started to do it. We found logs to balance on, and that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about that natural connection. Kids know how to do it.
Kids should know how to do it. They're not understanding it more and more. I mean, how many adults take their shoes off when they go outside? Me, I'm one. I'm very often barefooted when possible. On any grass, any wood chips, dirt, sand, anything I can find. If I'm able, I take my shoes off and I get that grounding. It's more important than people give it credit for. And as I said, our bodies aren't genetically designed in one generation to deal with all of this energy around us that's been added by the electronics and all these other things. So one thing you can do to detach is to connect to the earth. And that can be hugging a tree, lifting your shirt up and putting your back or belly on the tree while hugging it with your palms and your forehead. It's not just for hippies anymore, tree hugging. So there's ways that you can reconnect to nature or just connect to nature the way our ancestors for millions of years have been doing, that in the last 100 years have been cut off to us. And somehow we're very egotistical into thinking that our genetics are going to catch up. That's not how genetics work. It takes hundreds of years to be exposed to something for the cells in the next generations to adapt to those. And we don't have that time. As I said, you know, the egg for me was born in 1942. So, or the egg that I came from was born in 1942 when televisions technically didn't exist in the homes and things. So we haven't caught up genetically. So do what you can to protect yourself ritualistically and energetically, and be honest. Oh, they put a cell phone in my a cell phone tower in my neighborhood. Well, what does that mean to you? and your body and how you're going to receive that.
Time to move.
Well, not necessarily. There's things you can do in your own home to abate this abundance of energetic information, but we can't stop solar flares and we can't stop the moon from being full. So if you know these things affect you in advance, then Google, take a class, call someone like me, and you know, we give you rituals and things, ways you can specifically protect yourself. But it's more important now as ever. And, you know, we say that in every generation, but every generation hasn't been exposed to the amount of chemicals and things like that. You and I joked on Facebook a couple weeks ago about The Incredibly Shrinking Woman, which is a movie with Lily Tomlin from the late 70s, early 80s. And the premise is that her husband worked at a chemical company and she was exposed to too many chemicals and she started shrinking. And Galaxy Glue was one of the products, and it mixed with the laundry detergent, and that mixed with the paint thinner, and that mixed with something else, and she got exposed to that and she started shrinking. You know, that's an allegory for what's really happening to our cells and our mitochondria. You know, our mitochondria is trying to be challenged every day by some new pesticide that we've got in the bread that we didn't know came from where else. And, you know, look at the estrogen, especially particularly in America, where breast cancer rates for women are so high because of all the hormones and things that are going into the food products and the cattle. These are isolated incidences, but they all add up.
They really do.
And
they
just like
really
Lily Tomlin in The Incredibly Shrinking Woman, some of us are going to start to shrink. Now, that may be metaphorical, and it may be our energy or our nervous systems or our immune systems, but we're allowed to take control again to some degree. And having a little bit of control allows your body to be in control. And a lot of empaths are empathic because they weren't in control as a child.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
So you don't think people are born empaths, they're made into empaths, or a bit of both?
Oh, both. Definitely both. Yeah, definitely both. But if you were in a challenged household, a household of alcoholism or drug abuse or child abuse or sexual abuse or anything like that, your awareness was more heightened than your peers.
Yeah.
And so being heightened meant that as an adult, no one stopped you when you moved out of that whatever environment and said, okay, you can calm your nervous system down because there's no more wolf at the door. You don't have to be a 6-year-old in charge of, you know, protecting your siblings who are getting molested or abused or something.
Yeah.
But no one stops us at 20 and says, okay, put your nervous system back to normal. Now that you're an adult, you're in control. We just add on top of it when that unstableness feeling is still in our nervous systems. And so there are somatic techniques that I use, or somatic technologies that are available to get your nervous system back regulated and to not feel like it's built on an earthquake or a quaking system that you try to regulate on top of. So you go in and you acknowledge where the child felt compromised and didn't feel safe, and you let that child grow up inside of your psyche. And then you have an ability to defend yourself better across the board. So you don't have to defend yourself against every societal ilk that's out there, but knowing there's 2 or 3 that you can take control of and taking control of those gives you more stamina and strength to say, okay, I'm going to defy whatever comes at me now.
Yeah.
And you switch from victim mentality into self-esteem mentality. That's an archetypal shift. And so when you come from self-esteem, then you feel better and your body heals itself a lot easier and a lot faster.
Yes. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. As somebody that's used your services before, I mean, you and I have worked together quite a few times, haven't we? I can absolutely vouch for how useful spending time with you has been, in particular, in shifting my business and shifting the way I think about things. Every time you and I do some work together, something changes or something happens or new thoughts occur. It's almost as you hold the space for me to grow myself or unravel myself a little bit and come to a better understanding, something in my psyche shifts and it has a knock-on effect. Usually that starts happening the next day. So, you know, it really is very powerful work. I'd like to go back to how you kind of came to be doing what you're doing now, actually. You know, how did you, because you know, I'm sure you were always an empath and always a sensitive person, but what was it that made you realize that, you know, actually this is what I want to do, this is how I want to show up in the world? How did that happen?
So I was very intuitive as a child, almost to the point of being off-putting to my peers. And I have podcasts about this that I talk about a lot. But at a certain point, I decided around 11 or 12 to just shut it down. Whatever was making me unpopular or off with my peers, then I was going to shut that down. And in shutting that down, I felt something missing, I guess, but I didn't know what it was. And then in my midlife, it was pointed out to me that I was sort of had psychic abilities, and I finally sort of realized and accepted it, that I did shut them down and was open to opening them back up again. And I did it, you know, not as gracefully as I would have liked, because I wasn't a novice and I didn't know what was happening. And so it was quite brutal for the first maybe 18 months, overfeeling, picking up stuff I wasn't prepared for. And then once I really got a handle and honed it, I started seeing different practitioners and different healers. One of those people, we ended up doing my archetypal chart, which I work with now for people. I help read their archetypal charts. And upon reading my archetypal chart, it was pretty clear that I'm guided and destined to utilize or hone these abilities that I have to see energy and see patterns, and not use it as universally and more individually. So I catered mine to health. Once you look at my archetypal chart, which I'm not going to share, but there's many archetypes in there that lead me to the healing arts, if you will. And so I say I do what I am. Once I realized what my archetypes were and how my energy was being or could be utilized, now I'm able to say I do what I am. Meaning I'm a healer and I like helping people and I'm good at it and I get something back out of it. So there's reciprocity there. For me. It's not just a job. It's you know, calling. I'm not quite sure what that means in this day and age. I changed that to I do what I am. So, and people pay me for it.
I love that. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
I do what I am. Beautiful.
So once that happened and I knew that I was going to, you know, hone my abilities towards healing people, that's when I really started scrubbing underneath my fingernails, as I say. Because I work with people's energies and that's something that I need to honor, and I need to honor myself while doing that. And if I'm supposed to be a guide for people's energies, it seems pretty logical that I should have boundaries so people could lead by example.
Yeah.
One of the things I talk about a lot in the healing arts for me particularly is I don't pity people. And I've had clients that have horrific backgrounds but when they come to a different type of therapist, maybe that therapist will pity them and then they can commiserate together. And that's not why someone comes to see me.
Yeah.
I don't come to me to commiserate or tell me what your problem is. You come to me and I help you find the root of what the pattern is, and then we heal that root.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you say that, because I remember one time you know, having a session with you, and you're like, come on, out of the story, and you were really kind of matter of fact stepping me away from the story, and I really appreciated that for you, because we get into the habit of it. We are, I mean, culturally it's acceptable to stay in our stories, isn't it? It's almost encouraged.
Right. It's like eating sugar. You get a fix for a little bit and then your body actually is long-term depleted. Yeah. You tell someone your story and, oh, they're seeing my story a little bit, but then the story remains. So I'm not very much interested in the story, because generally by the first 5 to 10 words, I know where in the client's body that energy is being held. So I don't need the other, you know, 1,500 words that you've told therapists for 30 years. I just need you to think about what your issue is that's vexing you, and then your body lights up for me, and I can sort of hone and go right into that. It saves a lot of time because I don't need to hear a 15-minute story. But if you say, oh, my cousin, and I'm like, that's all I need, because I can already sense where it is. And then generally I can see around what timeline in your in your life, some of these contractions happened or some of these hoses got kinked energetically, and we go from there.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people that are interested in contacting you about that. If somebody is listening to this and thinking, I really like the cut of his jib, I want to work with Scott, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, you can listen to the podcast that I have. It's called the Intuitive Energy Podcast. And also my website is my name, scottclover.com. There's testimonials on there of other people that have experienced this kind of work and the benefits they've gotten out of it. And it's not just physical, or it's not just medical, or it's not just emotional or psychiatric. It's energetic. I don't work on those levels per se, as I work on the levels underneath that create those ultimately. Yeah. So if you can destabilize the strata of something at the base that's been holding or vexing you, then it can get better through your timeline almost sometimes instantaneously. So yes, going to an intuitive is because you want to find out what's the problem, or what was the original impact. I'm not as interested in how you feel right now. Right. And that's, I think, a flip on how some people relate to trying to heal the psyche, if you will, by talking about it. Since I'm not interested in the story as much as the impact it had on you, I see it differently. And then my disassociation from it can ultimately give you power to heal it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So right at the start, you were saying, like right now, it feels like we're all picking up energy. You've given us some amazing tips on how to protect ourselves, and also how to start receiving or recognize that we might not be receiving enough. Is there anything else that you think that we haven't really touched on that kind of falls organically into this subject?
Watch what you eat, physicality, exercise, things like that are pretty standard fare. But in terms of energetically,
what about like world energetics right now, and how? Obviously we can always turn our TV off and we can always turn our phone off. We can't always avoid all our neighbors and stuff. I mean, it's interesting, like when you're saying, what happens if the cell tower comes up at the end of your road, what do you do? And so there are things you can do, but at some level, when I hear all that, and I've been hearing this for quite a few years myself, I just want to run away and live in, on the Ganges or something, on the Amazon. I just want to run away and go somewhere where it's all very, very natural. So how can we make sense of it if all of a sudden we're feeling like we want to protect ourselves and maybe in a fear of it?
Well, I mentioned it a little earlier, is find 2 or 3 things that aren't enhanced in you, and bolster those 2 or 3 things.
Right.
By finding 1 or 2 or 3 things that you can bolster, it's going to have an ameliorating effect across the board. It's going to allow your systems maybe some breath and a little repose, a little break to then get its breath to help repair some of the other facets in your life. So don't think you can fix everything. Try to fix 1 or 2 things. Try to plug 1 energy hole. Get rid of 1 toxic relationship.
Yes.
Clean out 1 corner of 1 room. Stop talking to 1 of your relatives that you absolutely can't stand. Take little wins and then build off those. Because if not, it's too overwhelming to shift out of into a new paradigm. I would say climb out of the new paradigm. And if you're listening to this and you have awareness of your chakras, one thing I tell people often is to clean the backs of their chakras particularly. We as human beings are very accustomed to clean whatever we can see, right? But, we don't know what the back of our knees look like, or we don't technically know what the small of our back looks like, nor do we think about it because we can't see it.
Yeah.
We're more likely to look at our knee because we can see our knee than to think of what the back of what our backs look like. So if you're in the shower, if you have a salt scrubber, any time or place you can energetically or with your mind clean off the backs of your chakras. Chakras are 360. And in my case, I see them more as even a tunnel going through the body. And other people's energies kind of clambers onto our backsides, kind of like mud flaps in the back of a car. So when I do work with people, I would say 80% of the time, if they're doing work, I sense that they're doing it in the front halves of their body and much for the most part, neglecting the back half. And I think you've been called out on that several times.
Yeah, definitely. It's really funny because when you were saying that, I was thinking when Carl and I are together, I often, like, we often give each other healing or like hold each other, and my hands are always around his back, and the back of his kidneys, and underneath his feet. It's all the bits that he can't reach. That's always where my hands go. And I was thinking, wow, yeah, if I do that for him, why don't I do that for me? Yeah, a very, very good point.
Yeah, and one thing for people with their adrenal glands, if you don't know where your adrenal glands are, they sit right on top of your kidneys. So one thing you can do for yourself at any point in your life, if you're waiting in line at the bank even, is rub your hands together gently and get some chi moving, and then gently place your hands flat on your lower back and palm your kidneys and your adrenal glands. And as you do that, your adrenal glands are going to be seen and they're almost going to feel compelled to take a step back and downshift a little bit. So that's one thing we can do, is clean off the backs of your chakras. Read about your chakras if you want, where they are and how to do it. Most people don't talk about the backs of the chakras. And I think that's a real disservice to people, because it's where other people's energies clamor onto us. So if you've had judgment in your life, or being bullied, or, as you said, you have a strong family, whatever that means, a lot of that energy gets clamored onto the backs of us, and then we don't take the time or energy to clean it off. So if you're in the shower, let the shower run on your back and imagine it's cleaning your auric field and your back chakras. If you're meditating, scrub them with a metal brush. Pretend you have a metal wire brush and you're scrubbing the backs of your chakras to clean them out. That's one way you can really ground and protect yourself. And then physically, what you can do is put your hands on your adrenal and your kidneys and just get them to settle down on your own right. And do that 1 minute every day. If you're in a high stressed environment, or you watch the news too much, spend 60 seconds with your adrenal glands and checking in with them.
Wow.
Years ago, I was on the phone with the iPhone company, and he said, well, how often do you shut your phone off? And I said, well, I just plug it in at night. And he said, it all got jammed up. All your information got jammed up because you didn't clear your cookies or something. And that was such a strong metaphor for me, that I spent maybe 3 months, my phone never was shut off once. And when your phone stops working, starts acting funny, shut your phone off for 5 minutes, turn it back on again. It's cleaned something of it out in that reboot process. So a similar process goes for you. Shut your Wi-Fi down at night, shut yourself down at night, leave yourself without your phone, somehow shut off so you can turn back on again. Don't go in standby mode.
Yeah.
Standby mode keeps you excitable.
That is so really, really cool. Yeah, really, really amazing. And I love the fact that you've really sort of broken it down in a very practical way. Like boost the 2 or 3 things that you can boost, let go of the one thing you can definitely let go of, and just spend 60 seconds and doing it in the shower. When you were talking about rituals, I was thinking, crikey, what rituals have I got? And literally, the shower and a glass of water first thing in the morning, and glass of water late at night, because I literally hit the floor running every single day. And the shower is one place where I actually kind of send love to myself, but I didn't think about visualizing the shower cleansing my aura at the same time. I just think, washing all that dirt off my hair and things like that. So
no, let the shower let the shower clean the mosquitoes out of your auric field.
Yes.
Down the drain.
What I'm also hearing is that we can turn our sort of practical everyday, like every minute of our day, if we choose to, we can actually turn it into something magical. Like when you do have that sensation of a mosquito, you can shut yourself down. Like there are things you can be doing all the time. Like you've given us lots of ideas. It's in the imagination, right? If you can imagine it.
Right. Well, you called it magical, and I wanted I put
Yeah,
my
you don't
finger
like
up.
that word,
And
do
I
you?
was
You
like,
don't
whoa,
like
whoa, whoa. I was like, wait, it's not magic if it's your imagination and you're creating it. That's real.
yeah. Yes.
Magic
Okay.
can be the catalyst or the alchemy you use,
Yes.
but if you're experiencing it, then it's real. And our
Yes.
nervous systems and some of our corporeal systems don't know the difference between reality and our own imaginations.
Yes.
So if you can imagine something, your nervous system is experiencing that on some level.
Mm.
So if you imagine more clarity or more calm or more soft or more pillow in your nervous system or whatever it is, turn the hi-fi down in your electrical impulses. Whatever you're creating in your imagination is actually happening and being experienced by your imagination on some level. So it's more powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
Well, I'm really pleased that you came back. Thank you so much, Scott. It feels like it's been too long. So maybe we should meet up again a little bit sooner next time. Yeah.
I'd like that. Sure.
Whew. Well, that was excellent. It was fantastic having Scott back on the show. I'm really delighted that he came back. And of course, if you want to catch up with him, you can go to scottclover.com and you can also check out his podcast. All the details are below. If you've enjoyed this and you'd like to hear more from me and more from my guests, then please do subscribe if you haven't already. Also, click the notification bell, and that way you'll know when there's an upcoming new episode to check out. Anyway, thanks once again for joining us wherever you are in the world. It's absolutely wonderful that you connect with us at this time, and I love it. So thank you so much, and I hope to connect with you real soon. Bye for now.